Hello, Internet, and welcome to episode 257 of Verbal Graffiti with your host, Brian Glass, a.k.a. the B-Man, the People's Degenerate. White flight to the uninitiated, and I am going to initiate you. White flight happened post-World War II, post-passage of the GI Bill, when black people in America, black Americans, moved to the inner cities, and white people during that time period who lived in the inner cities, they flocked, they scurried, they flew, they drove out to the suburbs to live there because they were racist and didn't want to live beside black Americans. That was a history I was taught throughout my education, which was all public education. If you don't know the B-Man, I spent 3 years in kindergarten, graduated, then I did 1st through 12th grade, all public school. Then I went to the University of Connecticut, a public university, got a bachelor's degree in political science. Oh, what a waste that was. Seriously, my degree was such a waste. Political science, I enjoyed political theory, but how do you make money doing anything political theory related? I could talk about the first Iraq War. We are now fighting Iran 25 years later. So I guess it's somewhat relevant, but again, how do you turn that into money? I don't know. That's why I do this project, Verbal Graffiti. And then I have a master's degree in history with a certification in secondary education, and I didn't use that, and that was from Southern Connecticut State University. So all my education is public schools, public universities, public institutions. I am a man of the people. I am a public speaker. But so that's my background. So political science, history, the liberal arts, that's where I gravitated to. That's where I got my degrees. So this term white flight, I know about it. I've learned about it. I was taught white flight. I just taught you. You're welcome. It took me about, 16, 17, 18, 19. It took me over 20 years of education to learn about white flight. The B-Man just gave it to you in less than a minute. Maybe I should have been a teacher. Who knows? Anyways, I've been thinking about it. White flight. Is that really what happened? Now, I'm on PTO right now. I have a week off. I'm enjoying my time off. I'm going for jogs. I'm swimming. I'm trying to think of jokes, doing some editing. But I'm, in my head, not in my ball sack. This one's not in my ball sack. This is fermenting up in my head. For some reason, I've been thinking about white flight and the legitimacy of what I was taught. Now, I'll preface this by saying I haven't done any more research the last few days. It's been in my head. I've just kind of been playing ping pong, vacillating between what's the truth and what's not the truth, what's propaganda. Was I a product of propaganda from the public education system in the state of Connecticut? That's what I've been thinking about. So when I should be enjoying the hot July humidity and sunlight, I'm thinking about white flight and whether it's all BS or not. I am at a point now, middle age, 42, that's legit. Maybe I'm the back third of my life, the way our family's genes go here in the Glass family, that each passing year that I'm not in the education system, I become more skeptical of what the education system taught me. And then I'm here, 42-year-old. They literally throughout middle school. So from you don't really learn about in elementary school, but 6th grade, through high school and college, every once in a while this term white flight would come up, and we'd do a lesson plan about it, or the teacher would give us a lesson plan, and it was almost Like it was almost a given. Well, white people were living in the cities, post World War II, and then the blacks, Americans, they migrated up north, New York, Chicago, the northern cities, Philadelphia, and then the white people, they moved out of the cities, and they made what we now know as the suburbs. And partially due because of the GI Bill, they were allowed like a free mortgage or a very good mortgage rate, interest rate, so it was easier to buy a home. But also because whites didn't want to live next to blacks. So that's why they moved out to the suburbs. And the reason why they didn't want to live next to the blacks is because of racism, and racism only. And that's what we were taught. And to hand up, I just kind of accepted that. And none of my classmates disputed that claim. We read some articles. We did some, at that point, at Wikipedia, we weren't allowed to use, but it was in the textbook. Maybe we watched a movie or some type of video. And it was like, oh, yeah, white flight. The whites are racist. But now I'm looking back, well, maybe that's not why they moved away. Maybe, the blacks, they moved into the cities, but maybe like the whites occupied the inner cities during that time period, post-World War II. And maybe when a new group of people, in this instance, the black Americans, they moved in, and suddenly the white people, their neighbors didn't look like themselves. They had a different ways of living, a different culture. Maybe they didn't find the black people to be pleasant to live next to. I'm sure some of them are racist, but I'm sure a lot of them, they were just like, well, they're louder, they're out in the streets more, they're not assimilating to our culture, or to our way of life, how life usually is in our city. And since they're here, like, it's not as peaceful living next to the black people as it was living next to mostly white people. So we're gonna bounce. Since they gentrified our neighborhood, we're gonna go out and find somewhere else to live. And that's kind of all history. But for some reason in our history, we look at that, we give it a label, white flight, and that's racist. But that's just kind of how history is. If you have a neighborhood, you have a street or a community you live in, it's usually occupied by people who are like-minded and who look like you, usually your skin color, similar religion, ethnicity, way of life, and then you just kind of grow up together, right? We talk so much about segregation, but most segregation is self-segregation. They go to New York City, and there are little pockets, there are little neighborhoods where, the Chinese live, the Japanese live, the frat bros live, the yuppies live. Like, there's all these different communities. And I lived in a neighborhood, when I was living in New York City, 2019 and 2020, I lived in Woodside, Queens. You probably don't know much about Woodside, Queens, but let the B-man give you a little history. I was a white guy renting out a room. Most of the people in Woodside, Queens, like the downtown area, were Filipino. A lot of Filipinos, a lot of Asians, but primarily Filipinos. But oddly enough, and I didn't know this till I lived there, like I was a minority, I was a white guy, living amongst these Filipinos. But then I'd walk around the neighborhood, and there were a lot of Irish bars. All right. And then I couldn't really figure it out. Like, well, if a bunch of Asians, Filipinos live here, why is all the infrastructure, why are all the restaurants and bars, why are they all Irish, pubs and ale houses? Like, this doesn't seem to jibe. Like, the people and the buildings and the businesses don't really jibe together. What the fuck is this all about? So I was at this bar called the Dugout, which was run by Filipinos. But again, it kind of had the vibe. vibe of like a baseball dugout. So we did kind of have that dive bar, the white man dive bar aesthetic to it, as did many of the bars and restaurants in Woodside, Queens. So I was talking to a local, I think he actually happened to be a white guy or a white lady, and he was telling me, well, Woodside used to be predominantly Irish Americans that used to live here up until, I don't know, like the 1990s or 2000s. And then just there was just an influx of Asians who kind of just started living here, buying up the real estate, living in all the apartment buildings. But what remained, so the Irish people were they moved. But the bars and the restaurants, at least the face of them, remain the same. So that's why when you go to Woodside, Queens, it kind of looks like if it's late at night and everybody's home, like no one's out on the streets, you're talking like, 2 a.m., you look at all the buildings, you go, oh, this is an Irish American neighborhood. You're like, no, it's actually not. Once the sun rises, it's all Filipinos, it's all Asians, it's all, there's hardly any Irish Americans left in Woodside, Queens. Again, that's another flight, right? It's just one community migrates, and then the community that lives there, they somewhere else because they want to live amongst their people. And I don't really view that as being racist. I just view that as you want to live next to your own people, which is natural, which is the order of history throughout human history. And I remember I used to hang out, I kind of had this thing with a babe who lived in Nyack, New York. We used to like to walk around, do long walks during the summer, and just kind of look at all the architecture because there are all these great all the houses there are not cookie cutter, and it's right along the Hudson, so it's very scenic, Nyack, New York, and because of that, and because of the architecture, housing there is very expensive. But we're walking around one Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and we're walking miles. We end up talking to this babe. She gets out of her car, and I think she has a couple of toddlers with her. They go inside. We're talking to her. I don't really know how the conversation started, but she starts complaining about the real estate and how all these Hasidic Jews are trying to trying to buy real estate in Nyack, New York, and how she doesn't like it. She's gone to the town council meetings. She's trying to organize people to try to prevent our local community members to try to prevent the Hasidic Jews from buying real estate in Nyack, New York. Now, I don't really know what happened to that because I don't really fuck with that babe anymore. And so I don't know if the Hasidic Jews ended up taking over Nyack, New York, because that's what the Hasidic Jews do. That's what they did in parts of Brooklyn. The Hasidic Jews, they are a tight-knit community. Right? When they come into your community, they buy up all the real estate. They segregate themselves from everybody else, and they kind of do their own thing, and they get political power, and there's nothing you can do about it if you live in that community amongst them. Right? So this is happening right now, all around the world. Where I gotta be honest right now, I live in my mom's house. My mom is upstairs right now. How awesome is that? I'm living with my mom. I'm not going to say her age, but she's in her 70s. Just got a new mattress today. We're hanging out. We're living together. She's upstairs. I'm making verbal graffiti down here late at night. But our neighborhood, I've lived in this neighborhood my entire life. It's 4 or 5 years in New York City, a number of years in college, but for a year in New Haven. But for the most part, I've spent most of my life in Wallingford, Connecticut, and in this specific neighborhood that I reside in right now, and where we record verbal graffiti. The neighborhood, which I'm sure many of you are not surprised to hear, is pretty much white America. It's mostly whites. It's mostly, middle, maybe middle lower, middle upper, working class. Like both parents have to work, probably send their kids to daycare. A lot of small or young families. A lot a lot of elderly parents who, had kids that are now my age and like they're successful. They left their houses. I didn't. So now you have parents who are retirees who live in these houses who should probably move down south or somewhere, but they hang out here because real estate is so expensive and it's a peaceful neighborhood. But it's mostly white. It's mostly middle working class neighborhood with young kids to kids growing up. It's just a suburban neighborhood. Well, I'll be honest with you. If a bunch of black people or a bunch of black families or Mexican families or Filipino families moved into this neighborhood and there started to be fewer white families than there are right now, and they're loud and they're playing music and speaking different languages, or maybe they open up a mosque. There's a bunch of Muslims and they open up a mosque half a mile away and they're doing prayers in the middle of the day in the street. And I would feel as though, although this is my home, I would feel as though this isn't my home anymore. These are not my people. Not that they're terrible people, the people who moved in, not that they're evil or trying to cause me harm, nor am I trying to cause them harm, but it would be annoying, right? It wouldn't be racist. It would just be annoying. There's just a certain lifestyle, a certain way we live in this neighborhood. Obviously, we're all different, but we're very similar in the ways we go about our life and taking care of our homes. Well, it's not my home, my mom's home. But again, if different people of different cultures and religions and ethnicities who, whatever, they shoot off fireworks after midnight and playing music loud, and there are different types of vehicles, and you have a family with 3, 4, or 5 generations of family living in the same house, so it's always people coming in and out, and it's loud, and at some point, I'd feel like an outsider in my own home. So the only alternative is to live my life here as an outsider, or is to move to migrate to a place where I find people, like me, just white, working people, and who like to be quiet, who don't play their music loud. So it's like, there's always, and I'm always gonna be honest, maybe this is racist. Maybe the B-Man is a little bit racist. Whenever there's a house for sale in this neighborhood, I'm always a bit antsy about who's gonna buy that house. Because all it takes is 1 or 2 bad neighbors can fuck up an entire neighborhood. All right? It's not so much the skin color or even the religion of the people that move in that I'm worried about. I'm just worried that they're going to be loud, or maybe white trash, or they not take care of their lawn, or just be annoying. Don't shovel their driveways when it snows, whatever it may be. That's a wild card. When the house goes up for sale, of course, if you live in a neighborhood, you're curious about, well, what's the sale price? Because that's going to affect how much the house I live in costs. So it's all about the money, but it's also about how pleasant is that neighbor going to be. So this all goes back to white flight. And it's funny because when I just kind of took it as it is. Like, white people, they're just racist as fuck. They just want to live amongst their own. They're scared of the blacks. That's why they ran away to the suburbs. But now that I'm talking it out right now, like, is it really different than any other time period in history? Is it any different than right now? All right, if a bunch of black people move to the suburbs, or a bunch of Indians or whomever, like, I'd probably pack up and move. Pack up all my baseball cards, Derek Jeter baseball cards, and try to find somewhere else to live. Maybe that is racist. I don't know. But it's just, I don't know. The more I No, I don't think it's racist at all. I'm sure there was a percentage of the whites in the inner cities that were racist and didn't want a black neighbor. But man, there probably is a large percentage of them that just wanted to continue having white neighbors. I've talked, yeah, white flight is not racist. That's where the B-Man lands on. Also, there's a lot of things in history. Take something definitely a lot less heavy than white flight, or at least, actually, white flight's not that heavy. But now that I talk it out, that was propaganda. Fuck you, history teachers. Fuck you, trying to make me feel bad about white people. What else? Oh, something at Woodstock. We're taught that Woodstock is this amazing festival. It was the most popular. It was the most influential music festival or concert of the 20th century. Everybody know Woodstock 99. Sorry, Woodstock 6. Now, I am of the belief that 99's a better concert than Woodstock 69. But when I was in school, we were taught that Woodstock 69, and we wouldn't spend a long time on Woodstock, maybe a day or two. But that was taught to us in public school, that Woodstock 1969, was the most influential music event of the 20th century. Now, I look back, and again, similar to White Flight, I took that as is. Oh, Woodstock 69. So, would have been lucky to be there. I would have done anything to go back. Jimi Hendrix, Monday Morning, the Star Spangled Banner. They don't tell you in school that he sung that Monday morning when most of the audience had packed up and gone the fuck home. They don't tell you that in public school. All right? But they tell you all these famous bands and musicians that performed at Woodstock, which is true. But they make it seem in public school or just in culture that everybody was at Woodstock. This was a concert to be at. Every teenager or every young American between the ages of, 18 and every kid who was in college in 1969 migrated to Woodstock and was there. Every college-age student in America was at Woodstock. That's not true. How many people were at Woodstock? 100,000? Couple 100,000? There's probably at least 10 music festivals this year in 2026 that will have a larger audience than there was at Woodstock 1969. So get the fuck out of here with Woodstock 1969 being this influential event that had a monumental impact on pop culture in America. Same thing with Summer of Love, 69. San Francisco, peace, love, harmony, no war, anti-Vietnam. You read the history books, it makes it seem that anybody who is anybody, any cool person or any person who wanted to be cool, to be hip, to be groovy, went to San Francisco. Not the case. The Summer of Love, 1969, most Americans did not live in San Francisco, did not travel to San Francisco. What did most Americans do during the summer of 1969, the Summer of Love? They woke up. They went to work. They went to their job. They came home to their family. They ate dinner. They watched a little TV on the tube. I'm not sure if it was black and white or color at that point. And they went to bed. The summer of 1969 was the same as the summer of 1970 and the same as the summer of 1968. But the history books will make you believe that San Francisco was the epicenter of the world in 1969. Just question it. How many people, how many of your how many of your relatives, elderly relatives, fucked in San Francisco in 1969? Chances are, if you ask your older uncle, aunt, grandparents if they're alive, hey, did you make a pilgrimage to Woodstock or to San Francisco during the Summer of Love, 1969? The answer is going to be no, more likely than not. So fuck out of here with Woodstock and San Francisco and white flight. Huh? Alternative history here at Verbal Graffiti. All right, moving forward. This next one comes, if I can open it. Boom, 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 boom. All right. This comes from the subreddit Generationology, Gen Z women censoring their feet. And here's a photo. When and why did it start? Even though I have a bit of an answer to this, how widespread is it? Is it quite a bit where I live? How long do you expect it to continue? I get the sense that this photo is being a bit tongue-in-cheek, a bit facetious. Hey, B-Man, how do you spell facetious? F-A-T-E-C I-O-U-S, facetious? I don't know. The word I spelt wrong during the spelling bee in 4th grade was either adapt or adopt. Whichever one it was, I spelt the other word. So if it was adapt, I spelt adopt. You're wrong. Sit down, Brian. And I've never been the same since. So much of the internet and so much of just the culture is really looking down, thumbing there, just looking down at disgust with the Johns who are attracted to feet. Now, I'm not a foot guy. I'm not anti-foot, but I'm also not, it's not my kink. This actually really happened. I was talking, I get to the fucking point, B-man. Get to the fucking point. Okay. I DM'd this babe anonymous. I DM'd this babe on Instagram who I did not know. She did not know me. It was a cold DM trying to start a conversation. She responded. We started talking. She had cool photos, photography. That's how I tried to open her up. Like, hey, do you take these photos? I like the coloring you do. And then she's like, do you do any more? What's your deal with photography? And I asked her, do you do any other type of photography? And she goes, yeah, I do feet pic. Do you want some feet pic? Then I go, no, I don't want any feet pic. And she goes, oh, that's all I do. I sell feet pic to Johns like yourself. No, I'm not a feet guy, so I didn't buy feet pics from her because I'm not a feet guy. Like, it's well documented. I'm a vagina guy. I seek out the sniz. That's what I want photos of. That's what I want to play with. That's what I want to touch. That's what I want to pop, is the sniz. But literally within 5 messages, and she was young, I don't know, mid-20s maybe, that I was DMing on Instagram, she offered to sell me her feet pic. So maybe this isn't out of pocket here. Maybe Gen Z feet is a big thing, especially amongst the Johns. So the babes of Gen Z are covering up their feet, are blurring their feet out when they publish photos on the social media apps. So maybe it's a blind spot of mine, but I'm not a feet guy. It's not my kink, but I'm also not gonna point my finger at a foot guy with a foot fetish and tell him he's a weirdo. He's a John. To get off the internet, to stop being a creep. You'll never hear me say that. Because I'm not gonna turn down a foot, especially a big toe. Like, if I'm dicking down a babe and her foot ends up near my mouth and there's an opportunity to take a big toe in my mouth, the B-man, I'm going to take it. There's going to be no hesitation. Though what I'm just trying to convey here is I am not going to seek a big toe to suck. I'm not going to seek that out. The foot has to get near my mouth. My mouth is not going near your foot. Your foot has to go near my mouth to suck it, or near my hands to massage it. You got to be bringing your feet to me. I'm not bringing my mouth to your feet. So if we're fucking and your foot is near my mouth, I'm going to suck your toes. And I'll also say, if we're having a dalliance and I discover that your second toe is longer than your big toe, I am not going to procreate with you, because that is a mutation that I don't want to pass on to the next generation. So everybody who has a second toe that is larger than their big toe should be executed. I'm kind of pro eugenics in that way. We can't be having those type of feet here in the world. So we gotta have a genocide of people who have a second toe longer than their big toe. Because how can you be the big toe if your second toe is mogging you? You can't. You can't call yourself the big toe when your second toe is mogging you by looking down at you. Like, you're the big toe? You're looking up at me. How can you? All right, you get what I'm getting at there. But I'll suck a toe. I'll definitely suck a toe. I'll play with the toe. I've seen videos. Again, I don't seek this out, but sometimes you're gooning, you're watching some smut on the internet, maybe on X, which I'm doing now. It'll be a normal scene, maybe a blowjob, sucky, just normal fucking scene. It is just normal smut. And at some point during the scene, the babe reaches up with her feet and starts like jerking off the John, with her feet. And that's something I've never hawked my dick loogie watching a guy be jerked off with the babe's feet, with like the inside of her feet. I've never hawked my dick loogie to that, but I have watched it go, oh, that's a thing. Okay, that's a thing. That's never been done to me. I've never had a babe jerk me off with her feet. I've never made the request. I'm sure there are plenty of babes who would if I asked. I've just never asked because I'm not a foot guy. But you do watch it, and when you first see it, okay, that's different. That's a little different. Watching a foot jerk off. I mean, it doesn't look any more weird than a titty fuck. Like, a titty fuck looks pretty fucking weird. All right? John's got his dick in right in the middle of a babe's chest, and the babe is like spitting on her chest, pressing her boobs together right around the guy's dick, and the guy is just like punching her in the chin with the mushroom top of his dick. Right? And he's going back and forth, and the baby's like this, and she's spitting to try to get the lube going. And that looks very weird, looks very uncomfortable for the female participant of the titty fuck. It looks weird and uncomfortable all the way around. When you compare that to jerking off a guy with a babe's feet, or hell, even a guy's feet, if that's the way you go, like, that seems more comfortable and it seems more natural than a titty fuck. Because with your toes or your feet, like, it's easier to put pressure on a penis and stroke it with your feet than it is between your titties during a titty fuck. At least that's what I think. If you disagree, let me know down in the comments. I'm sure you will. But I'm pretty certain A, f- a foot a foot fuck is more pleasurable than a titty fuck. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I'm going to try to defend the Johns who do have the foot kink. I want to defend them because so many people try to slander their kink on the internet that like it really talk. It is that example I just gave. Like the titty fuck. Guys love the titty fuck. The Johns, we love a titty fuck. We seek out the titty fuck. We love putting our penis between your chest and just and punching you in the chin with our penises. I don't know what we love it, but when you really think about it, like the getting stroked off with a babe's feet, like that probably feels better. And when you think about most guys, all right, I'm a sniz guy. I like the vagina. I'm a vagina guy. But most guys, if you were to ask, they tell you either, most guys are Johns. Sorry, most Johns are, you're either a boob guy or you're an ass guy. You're one or the other. But let's break it down. Like the ass and boobs don't do anything. Like really, what can you do? All right, let's say you like boobs. What do boobs do? They jiggle. There's two nipples. You suck them a little bit. You hold them. You massage them. You motorboat them. You titty fuck them. That's about it. But the boobs themselves, you have to move them. You have to make them jiggle, or she makes them jiggle. But they're just there. Really, they're just two boobs are two pitcher mounds of fat. That's all boobs are, with nipples on top. Instead of a pitching mound, it's two nipples. And all right, the one exception is if you're pregnant, you could shoot milk out of the nipples. All right, that's the one exception. That's kind of cool. Being able to shoot liquid out of your nipples, that's cool. But all it is fat. And the same thing with your ass. All a babe can do with her ass, if she has one, is twerk it, jiggle it. You could slap it, you could caress it, you could grab it. That's all you can do. That's all the ass does. And besides the only other things it does is poop. And if that's what you're into two butt cheeks that poop comes out of the middle of. Like that's really all you can do with the butt. It's two mounds of fat that doesn't do anything that you grab onto. So the boobs and the ass they leave you wanting more, right? Even if you're a boob guy, even if you're an ass guy, it's almost more weird to be a boob guy or an ass guy than it is to be a foot guy. Because the feet, babes have mobility with their feet. Most babes have mobility with their 10 toes. Your feet, there's 10 toes. They can move. They can put on a production. They could stroke you off. They could tease you. They could tickle you. The feet. They could get pedicures and different color makeup, nail polish. Think about how much money babes spend on pedicures. It's crazy. And on footwear, hopefully it's not flats. Hopefully your babe's wearing heels for herself. Because babes look hotter in high heels than they do on flats. Nothing makes Mr. Perfect, my penis, go flaccid, softer than a babe that wears flats. Be a better babe. Be feminine. Wear some heels. But the feet, you can get freaky deaky with your feet and especially your toes because you can move them. There's dexterity with your toes. Not the case with your boobs or your ass. And maybe you jiggle them a little bit, but that's all you can do. The toes are where all the action can be. So when a John tells you he's a foot guy, don't laugh at him. Because the feet can put on more of a production than the boobs or the ass ever can. And that's fact. That's science. That's biology. That's anatomy. So you'll never hear me laughing, scoffing, tattletelling on a foot guy who has a foot fetish kink. I don't even think it should be a kink. Like the foot guy's right. The foot guy. Most guys, we're just dummies. We're mesmerized by those mounds of fat that are on your chest or on your behind. The foot guy is a smart guy. He's a guy, no, those feet, those toes, little Miss Piggy, she'd be freaky. You could do things with that. Go suck a fat one.